and the accepted meaning of destiny is to make firm establish. So my guests and I bring you messages to establish what you need to know in the present. And also, I like working with angels and the calmness they bring. Now, in a moment, I will introduce you to my wonderful guest, Victoria Smith-Gillard. But before that, I'd like to say thank you so much for watching the show live or at a later date, as it really does mean a lot to me to connect with like-minded women. Now, if you've never met before, then my name is Ray, and I love to help women to crossroads in their life, heal their past, create their future, and transform their present, so they can take charge of their destiny in the here and now. I'm the founder of Radiant Angel Energy, and I use future life progression, past life regression, angelic Reiki, guided meditation, angel oracle cards, and hypnosis to help women who feel lost get clear on their reason for being here. I've also created several transformational packages, a journey through lifetimes, and a 6-week guided meditation series to help you step into confidence. Now, each episode of this show covers various themes of your journey, a mini guided meditation or angel oracle card reading with the wisdom of my wonderful guests, like today's guest, Victoria Smith-Gillard, about how the loss of a pet or their owner can be devastating for those who are left behind. And today, this is what we're going to be talking about, is how animal communication can heal the rift, how soul contracts can help an owner heal deeper, and how mediumship in addition can bring about comfort to a living pet and owner in those situations. We'll also be touching on the subject of separation anxiety with pets, how once again they are way showers and the deeper elements to separation and anxiety and your pet. So Victoria is a bereavement therapist for pets and their owners. Working with pets and their owners grieving the loss of a pet or the loss of an influential loved one. As a medium, animal communicator, healer, and more, Victoria can help reconnect their pet, person in spirit to a pet loved one still here, pass on messages, special memories, signs, etc., and also work with both parties to release emotions around the pet person's passing. Now, as a people and pet therapist, Victoria's second specialist interest is helping pets and their owners to gain insights and healing around separation anxiety through a variety of therapies. Now, separation anxiety, believe it or not, is one of the top 3 problems that vets are used to seeing and be quite complex, often mirroring attachment trauma to the owner as well. Now, Victoria works with both parties with permission and take them on a healing journey together. Now, cats and horses, believe it or not, get separation anxiety as well as dogs. And I'm guessing other animals do as well. Now, Victoria supports the theory that all animals have a mirror, dogs especially, and are not just carrying their own traumas. They reflect back anything we haven't healed in ourselves. Working in tandem with an owner and pet can help them to heal their own emotional wounds that their pet is showing them, creating a deeper bond, connection, love, understanding, and compassion between an owner and their pet, yet also an owner being more loving towards and integrating all parts of themselves. So, without further delay, hello, Victoria, and welcome to the Angel and Destiny show. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Hello, thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for watching, live as or on replay, as Ray said. So yes, pleased
Excellent.
to be
So,
here.
before we get into this fascinating conversation, I want to remind you that not only can you share this video, but you can also ask questions, leave comments and thoughts, as both Victoria and I want to be part of this conversation. So, please don't be shy. So, Victoria, why don't you tell us more about your journey and about pet bereavement and the healing beyond?
So with my journey, so one of the things that happened to me that kind of led me to working with animal communication and with pets in spirit is my own cat that I'd had since literally you could fit her in the palm of my hand. She lived till May 2016, and she passed away. She was about 17 and a half, I think, at the time. And I was absolutely devastated. And I remember going to spiritual church at the time, and no disrespect to my loved ones, but actually the best thing that could have happened for me is for a medium to come through and say, I've got your cat here, this is what they look like, and she just wants to tell you that she's okay. Like, I desperately wanted that message, and really needed it, and that's why it's so close to my heart, and it's something that I have wanted to do pretty much since that point, because I was very lucky in that she did give me a sign. So the day that she actually passed, I won't go into it because that's probably still a little bit, emotional at points. But I was very upset to the point, and I'm sure lots of people out there who've lost a pet can understand this, where your emotions are so intense that you pretty much want to like blow the four walls out of your house, basically. And that's where I was at when I went to bed, and I was sobbing my heart out, thinking, oh my goodness, I'm not even going to sleep. I'm just going to be bereft all night. And suddenly I heard this like shh, and I turned round and looked at the bedside lamp, because that's what the noise was when she used to rub her face against it. And it
Ah.
absolutely stopped me in my tracks, and made me realise, oh my goodness, you are here. You're absolutely here. So, obviously I had that sign, but I did still want a reading because, naturally you're still in that process of, I mean, grief takes lots of different angles. You go through lots of different emotions and come back on yourself, and it's all very muddly, and the thing is that where was I going to go with that? Sorry, my head's just gone woof.
that
It's
that
as if they say, no, you don't need to share that. That's gone, Come on, what was I going to say? Yeah, so obviously she gave me that sign from spirit, and as I say, so I went to church, and I still really wanted that, because that's what I was going to say is, obviously, when you're in that process of grief, you're still grieving the physical loss of them. No one can take that away from you. We're all having to get used to the fact that you cannot, physically touch them. Even if you can feel them from spirit, it's not the same. It's not the same as feeling them in that physical sense. So I was still going through that, and as I say, yeah, I really wanted that reading at church, and it didn't come. And it was just something that I always said is like, right, that's something I would like to do because I've experienced it, and if I can help someone else in that situation, then that's what I want to do. So I started off doing case studies, because I wasn't sure whether it was possible. I was like, well, it must be possible, surely. But at the same stage, you're like, oh, what is it?
yeah.
Sort of thing. So I did case studies with a very kind help of one of my animal communication mentors, Joanne Yo. So we set up case studies, and they were incredible. It just blew me away, and it meant a lot. I'm not going to kind of go into them, but it meant a lot to those people that we did the case studies with. So I was like, okay, it is possible then. Brilliant, and so I added that to my website, and that was there. And then it's kind of then taken, I mean, that was probably at least 2 years ago that started to happen, because it was just as the pandemic year was first starting, that I looked at kind of having the mentoring around it. And it's kind of evolved from there, really, that actually, as I've then gone on to work with more people who have lost pets, and they've gone to spirit, that then when I've done communications, I've seen just how like more beneficial they are, what healing it can bring, and also what insights it can bring as well, which I know we're going to sort of touch on. And from that, there's also that element, because I'm trained obviously in both sides. I'm trained in obviously pet therapies, and I'm trained in people therapies. I was like, right, then I want to help people with their emotions, because animal communication definitely helps, and I will never wing it. Whatever the pet tells me, that's what I say to the owner. I'm never going to tell them something that it isn't, because to me that wouldn't be morally and ethically correct, and that's just not me, really. But when they've said things, definitely you can sometimes see a shift, you can feel a shift and a transformation with that client. But also oftentimes there's still other emotions that are there for someone. So we work generally I work with things like tapping, but a lot of energy work where we're actually working with the emotions, and the thought patterns, if you like, that are coming up with a bereavement, to actually then work on that. And it can also then go into working and healing an owner's past as well. So one of the things I found is a bit of a pattern is often the way pets pass away can be very familiar or resonate to do with the loss that we have had in our past that hasn't been completely resolved yet. So it might be particular layers, for instance, that it haven't been resolved. To give you a personal example of that would be Panda, who was my beautiful foster cat that I had for 8 weeks. And, the people that allowed me to foster him know this, so I'm not saying anything that they don't already know, that when they sent the email saying, would it be possible for you to look after a 20-year-old cat for, 2 to 3 weeks for a particular reason, I remember reading the email and going, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to put him to sleep. And that was it. everything in my body was like, oh my goodness. And I then realised that that was the only aspect of my own cat's passing that I hadn't, like Phoebe's passing, that I hadn't dealt with because I'd had no other kitty. So, and unfortunately, I was right. I didn't obviously want to be right, but bless him, he taught me a lot in the 8 weeks that he was with me. Fantastic amount. He was a what we'd call a master healer. So you can imagine the powerful impact that had.
Yeah.
And it was very stressful to go through that again. But he left a legacy. And his legacy actually was not just to me, it was also to actually a lot more people in the world. And that was because there was a situation around his passing where I had been told I could be with him. And then because of the global situation, when I got there and I was advised that actually the kindest thing was for him to be put to sleep, I was then told I couldn't be with him. And that triggered a great amount of PTSD. So anybody that doesn't know what that is, that's post-traumatic stress disorder. And I actually vowed to him, I'm not letting this go. This needs to be dealt with. And I've rung the surgery, and they said a few people have said that to us, that's caused a great deal of stress. So I ended up actually taking it further with them and saying, look, you've got to try and find a way to allow people to be with them, where you're feeling safe and they're able to feel safe, because this is heart-wrenching to not be able to be with your loved one, with your loved pet, when they're passing. I said, because for most pet owners, that's the absolute one time you want to be with them in a way, even though it breaks your heart.
Yeah.
You don't want them to be on their own in those few moments. And his legacy was that actually they put something in place for the vet group where people could be with their pets. So in a way, I'm getting loads of goosebumps. I don't know whether you are, but in a way, it was like that was his legacy, and it kind of made sense for who he was. So definitely the way they pass can help you heal previous losses. I've seen that with clients around me. There was a lady, bless her, whose doggy was killed in a road traffic accident, and his sudden loss basically reminded her of family members passing. Good evening, Jane. Thank you for joining us. And and there's been sort of a few others from that. So it's amazing how. And to me, that's kind of like a soul contract. I get the feeling that actually they've chosen to pass in that way to then be able to help their owner, heal that loss in either in one aspect or in full for something that they've been through previously. So when you kind of think of it in that way, it's like, oh my goodness, like that's just, again, it's just mind blowing, really, and very heartwarming at the same time.
Yeah.
So and as I say, it's not the only one. Often not necessarily the way they pass, but our feelings, our thoughts around their passing can also be very indicative of us then healing a past element. So it might be that we don't feel that we did enough for them, and that might be that we had somebody in our life that we didn't feel we did enough for, and we've got lots of emotions around that. Or sometimes it might, say we couldn't be with them, we might feel like we've abandoned them, and the reason that we resonate with that is because actually we perceived that we were abandoned in life by one of our parents or both our parents or caregiver of some description. So and definitely I know spirit often kind of help me sometimes, where I'll just feel that massive push on my back as if say, get those words out, that needs to be said, and I'll be like, okay, yep, so we're going deep with this one, sort of thing. But I know that that's meant to happen. I know that that's come up for a reason. And it's just so beautiful, because I've always said, when I did the pets are our mirrors talk before, I've always said, like, they, pets are kind of collective consciousness, they're messengers for us about what we need to heal. And I never thought that that would be the case with pet bereavement, but I'm definitely seeing the patterns there, that actually there is often something from our past that will require healing that relates to them. So it's not just about, should I have done it then? Should I have done it now? Should I have done this? Should I have done that? All the shoulds that we do to ourselves, don't we, every day?
Yep.
And it's just incredible, really, in the way that they can give that to us as a gift, I mean, definitely you can use things like CBT to help people reframe their thoughts and work on it that way. But as I say, often it's emotions that relate back to other situations. So it then becomes it's the animal communication is a big part of it, but then it's like this whole like rounded situation, if you like, where you're working not just with them reconnecting with their pet in a more energetic way rather than a physical way, and allowing them to really know that their pet is in, that they can connect with their pet in spirit, that they're sending them signs, which I know we're going to go on to, but actually that they can have happy memories, and some of the things that, because when I communicate with pets in spirit, I always ask for a message for the owner. So often it will be a message with regards to perhaps what they've written on the form, but sometimes if that isn't there, then that message will be what I might be sort of feeling into and thinking, right, okay, I'm going to ask them about this. Or sometimes it's just very general, have you got a message for your mum or dad? And sometimes it's like I just want them to be happy. Sometimes it massively goes off the scale and blows my mind yet all over again. And it talks about reincarnation, and it'll talk about soul contracts. And so yeah, I mean, it's incredible. So I've just seen there's a message from Jane.
Yeah.
So she definitely was affected greatly by two of my cats. Shock, yeah, road traffic accident, and shock, the loss of my father before. So yeah, you can see, Jane, how one is triggering, the same emotions, because it's like your whole body. I mean, we know from Bessel van der Kolk, his book is The Body Keeps the Score, and so it's like something say, oh my goodness, this is familiar. We've seen this before, and it's all coming up. And I think if we can just get it at that point and be able to help ourselves release it, it can make such a difference, because then we aren't holding it in our body. But yeah, I think anytime, I mean, the doggy that I was talking about, I'd worked with him quite a few times. So it was quite a personal one for me, because I remember being rung by his mum saying it's happened and could I give him some healing. And I remember asking his permission, and he actually said no. And I was like, oh, that's not good.
I don't explain that one.
Yeah, and then I just said to him, darling, can I at least give you some healing for relaxation, even if you won't allow me to work in a different way? And he said, yes, you have permission to do that. And actually, he has come through at church, at Spiritualist Church, in readings, and said that he is around me, and that he actually thanked me for giving him healing in that sense, in that time. So it is beautiful. But as as Jane has said, there's a lot of shock involved when it's things like road traffic accidents. So yeah, Jane, it'll be a similar thing really, where it is resonating and the emotions are coming up. So yeah, I hope that you were able to get some help with regards to that. But obviously, if not, let us know if that's still a trouble for you. But so it's incredibly powerful how they've left the physical world, yet they're still having that impact on us. And I mean, Ray, would you, we were talking sort of just before, like, I wondered if you wanted to share with viewers sort of about the signs that you've had from some of
Yeah.
your pets actually for spirit.
Yeah, well, as most of you will know, obviously I lost my cat Gypsy just before Christmas. And what was really interesting is she's made herself known not just to me, but through other people as well, and it's not something you would expect, because she wasn't really a people person. She was very much independent, and my cat, those that know, that used to come round, and that she'd be very choosy, and she'd kind of like, yeah, I'm not going anywhere near you. But when she first passed, I was reading, and I heard some little footsteps at the bottom of the stairs, just like she used to do, and it's like, oh, she's come to say. And then I felt her get onto my bed once. So it's only the once, just when she passed. And then as I was going to sleep, she told me what she wanted me to do with her ashes. She's very specific, and I've got specific instructions that she's told me I've got to do. And every now and again, I accidentally trip over her. There's this shadow, and I suddenly go over, and it's like, thanks, Shib. She just tried to trip me up. And then somebody, I was doing a group through guided meditation, and Gypsy actually came into their meditation, and basically wanted to give me a message, and this person is not an animal communicator or anything like that. But my cat Gypsy, being what she was, wouldn't let her come back until she said, "Yes, I will take that message back." I had trouble getting her back into the present because Gyps was going to her, "You ain't going back yet. Not till you promise you give that message." And then another friend has come in the house and sort of like, felt she needed to go into the kitchen to see Gyps. So, yeah, she makes her presence felt all the time, and that, and the little things. But it's the tripping over. There's a shadow there, and suddenly I'm going over, and it's like, thanks.
Well, did she do that when she was here?
Occasionally, I'd sort of like miss her off
Yeah.
again. I'm like, oh, so sorry.
And I think that's the thing, I think that's so important, because it's okay for ourselves who are kind of quite used to this. We're sort of quite open to it, and we trust it. But I think for anyone out there that's still either new to this or is a bit unsure about it, often I think the thing you get is people go, I thought I was crazy. The amount of times I've heard people say that to me, I thought I was crazy. And when you're doing like the animal communication, one of the things I will say is, has your mum heard, seen, or felt you from spirit? Mum or dad, but often I'm working with females. But so Jane said, I love Gypsy coming through in my meditation.
See, she, everyone I know, she keeps going into them. She keeps going into the meditations. It's like, I'm going to let people know I'm still about.
Yeah. But I think it's so lovely. I mean, obviously, I had the one from Phoebe, and similar thing. When I didn't have a cat here, I've done the same thing where I've tripped over a cat and I'm like, hang on, I don't have a cat. And then I'm like, oh, it was her, and that was lovely to know, because so if anyone's done that, and it's like, oh my goodness, that has happened, then please do understand that's not you being crazy. It's just that often, spirit loved ones and pets will show themselves in your peripheral vision, because I think can you imagine if they all kind of just like stood right in front of us? Yeah, exactly. Even most of us that are used to this would still get a bit of a shock. So I think they do that because it's a bit more gentle, and it just is a little bit of a calmer way of coming in. But I mean, even with Panda, as you say, he was the 20-year-old chap, and when he passed away, a couple of days before he'd passed, I mean, the entire time I had him 8 weeks. The entire time he'd been given the option to come into my bedroom. I'd got a little stepping stool for him so he could hop up onto the bed in layers, and he had chosen not to. And then a couple of days before he passed, he chose to come in and snuggle in bed with me back to back. And that was such a moment. And then the night before he passed, he came right up to my pillow and laid right next to me. Now, of course, hindsight, now I know that was him kind of saying goodbye, really. But at the time, I was just like, oh wow, he's starting to open up, and he's wanting to come in, and and then I mean, it was interesting because I think it was one day before he passed. I'd asked a friend of mine if they would communicate with him and to ask him a couple of things, because he was, I think he had just very briefly started to just sit in the loo and he'd just stay there. And I just wondered if they could, ask him, because sometimes you're a bit too close when it's your own, aren't you? So I said, can you just ask, just to make sure I'm not, too close to it? And the lady wasn't able to do this until he'd passed away. Now, I didn't tell her that he'd passed. And she asked him, and he said, I'm tired now, I want to go. And I then said to her, well, actually, bless his cottons, he did get that wish. That's exactly what's happened. And when I took him to the vet surgery, and they said, unfortunately, that's going to be the kindest thing, I did say to him, look, would you mind just bringing him back out to me so I can say goodbye? And they brought him back out, and he screamed at me like, why am I coming back out? That's not what was supposed to happen. That was kind of the feeling I got from it, so he definitely wanted to go. It was like, yeah, I'm done. My time's done. I've said my goodbyes. I want to go now, bless him. And the sign that he showed me was he kept wandering through the hallway and back again, and I saw that several times and really felt it. And then another one I've had was, I used to look after my boss's cats, and Baby had already passed. And Shadow, who was a black Burmese, he was the one that when they used to go away, he used to actually curl around my shoulders and I'd sing songs to him because he quite liked that. And I'd gone in to see his sister, Emma, who was a black and white kitty, and she was at the vet surgery whilst the owners were away. And I'd gone into their little booth where they were, and it was just her. And I was talking to her and I was kneeling down. And then I felt Shadow doing a figure eight to the left of me. And I was like, oh my goodness. And whilst I was feeling this, she looked exactly there. And I remember looking at her going, oh my goodness, you can feel him here with us. I was like, he's here. Your brother's come to look after you. And she just looked straight back at me. And I was just like, oh my God. I think that was the first one I ever experienced, But I've had clients say, they've heard the claws on the decking and things like that. They've heard them bark. They've not seen them necessarily, but they felt them like in their peripheral vision, if that makes sense. Like when somebody's behind you and they're staring at you and you can just feel it.
Yeah.
It was that kind of thing where they can feel it, or a bit like you were saying earlier, you feel them get on the bed, and so anyone that's going through this or has experienced it and thought they were crazy, most often this is signs from your pet saying, I'm here, I'm still with you. And I mean, to the point of, even when Phoebe had, I suppose in clinical terms, passed away, her heartbeat had stopped. I remember saying, because the vet said to me, she's gone. And I remember saying to the vet, who luckily was a friend of mine, so that wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
Didn't think I was so totally crazy. And I remember saying to her, no, she hasn't. And she just sort of looked at me and she's like, because I could see it in her eyes. Her soul was still there. And it wasn't until I went out and came back again that her soul had actually left. And I think she needed me to leave to kind of go, right, I've got permission to go. And I have seen that before, actually. I have seen that before with a rabbit around me, where bless her, the rabbit had passed away in the morning and I'd been with the owner for the day. And one of their family cats had come up and was licking her and, that kind of thing. And I was like, oh, bless them, they know something's happened. And then later on the day, the cat came back again and went to it and go, and just walked off. And I said, oh, her soul's left. And it was just such a visual confirmation of, like, they can feel it. They can feel that soul has passed up to spirit, So I think, some of the healing is actually just us understanding that they, when they pass from this realm, from the earth and, from their physical body, their soul, still does live on, and I mean, reincarnation, there's a lot out there about that of, some people say it's not possible, some say it is. I've had pets show me that they've been in a life within a previous life with an owner in a different way.
Yeah, Gypsy was with me in a previous lifetime.
So, so I believe that absolutely they can reincarnate, and you can ask them to do that as well. You can say, like, when the time is right, I would love it if you did come back to me. And I think if they don't, that doesn't mean anything about us that we've done anything. It just probably means that as part of our soul's journey, separately or together, that's not meant to be at that moment in time. But I've definitely had people say to me, when I look in the eyes of my pet, I'm sure I've known them before. And I just think, well, trust it.
Yeah.
Absolutely trust it, because you most probably have. And it's, it's that soul connection that you're feeling and you're regaining, if you like. But as I say, just like understanding that they are in, spirit, that they can communicate with you, that often they are around us, especially when, the passing is still raw, when we're still going through that. I think often they do want to be around us and show a sign. And, even things like, people might have experienced like a real gentle brush on their arm, or I've had one pet, bless them, who suffered pancreatitis. And one of the things they gave to me was, it's not exactly a swear word, so I apologise if anybody's offended by it. But one of the things they gave was the smell of their farts. And I was like, oh, okay, we're definitely here. Yep. And so I went, could you give that to your mum, please? Because I want her to know that you're here. And I thought, what better way? You can't dispute that one.
No.
Not that her mum would have, but and I said, what's happening for you right now? Is there anything going on for you? She's like, oh my goodness, I can smell. And I'm like, yeah, I just asked him to give that to you. You're welcome,
With
sort of thing.
something you touched on there, which I think is something we often forget, is other pets in a house when a pet dies. That if we're going through grief, they could be going through grief as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a great point to pick up on, because, yeah, they do grieve. And the thing is, sometimes they'll be okay with it. So some pets change, owners can be a bit shocked by that, that they're kind of like, yeah, they've gone, sort of thing. And they're like, okay, they're not unhappy, but I think, well, again, there'll be reasons for that. There'll be reasons why, and then there'll be other pets that are grieving just as we would grieve. Sometimes it's that they're grieving the routines, or it's grieving that, they got protection from that sibling, for instance. I mean, I work with a beautiful doggy called Bella, who's actually, she's featured on the front of my website, and her brother Edward had passed away, and he was very protective for her, her protector, and so she was massively grieving him, and she was, she was just barking a lot, and I just said, I feel like she's just got so many emotions there. She doesn't really know what to do with it. She doesn't really know how to cope with this. And we worked with her actually in a slightly different way. I worked with her with hypnotherapy and used a script that you would use with people that are bereft, and just kind of swapped it around for a doggy. So Jane said, I always allow other pets to see the past animal if possible. Absolutely. I totally agree, Jane. I think that is so important. It's because it's part of that grieving process. And I think, I mean, Jane will probably have experienced this, but I certainly did with the rabbit, for instance, because that was such a visual of, they really get this. They really understand that soul has then left, that body. And you can imagine how, well, if they don't get that, they're looking around for them thinking, where are they? Are they coming back soon? Mum took them out today. I don't know where they are. So I agree personally that actually I think it's a really good idea to do that and allow them to just feel that, as much as it might be heartbreaking for us and it might be heartbreaking for the pets. I think it's just an important part of that, of because if they don't want to see them, then they won't probably go anywhere near them.
Yeah.
But I think, you're just giving them that opportunity, really, aren't you? And I think the thing is, just understanding that your pets will be grieving, and so there is a possibility they won't eat as much as normal, or they'll pick at their meals, or they'll be quite insular, because they're going through grief. And I think us understanding that and not personalizing it, because I think sometimes we kind of go, come on, cheer up, and we try and get them out of it. And it's like, why? They're grieving the same as we're grieving. So they've got every right to do that. And if their need is to spend time alone and to just be outside sitting on the grass, even if that's quite abnormal for them, then why not? I mean, obviously, if they are not eating at all for certain period of time, then absolutely, contact your vet, speak to them, because we know that certain animals can't go without food for very long before it starts affecting things, so internally. So absolutely, always speak to anyone out there that's going through anything like that. Then do speak to your vet if you're concerned about it. But I think otherwise, just allowing them to be able to go through that the same as we are, and be compassionate with them. But I think that's the point, isn't it? If we're not compassionate with ourselves, and we're like, right, come on, stiff upper lip, British, come on, we've got to get on with this. Just put a smile on your face, cup of tea. And I have chosen not to do that. I chose not to work in my business when I lost Phoebe. I chose to take time out. I went for walks. It was similar with Panda, but not quite the same, obviously, because I didn't have him for quite as long. But definitely, I allowed myself time to go and speak to the horses that were close to me. I felt drawn to, and walks in nature. And I asked my inner child what she needed. And I think that's the thing, is just when you can do that for yourself, then I think you're much more compassionate towards your pet as well. That is obviously grieving. But I think the thing is that if they are, the wonderful thing about the animal communication is that then you can reconnect them both as well, and it's the same for if a loved one passes away. And that's why I'm saying kind of bereavement therapists for pets and the owners, because if say that mum or dad passes away and the pet's still living, again, they're grieving. They may not know what's happened, because it's obviously not very normal for humans to be able to, we don't bring our bodies home and go, right, you can sniff them now and know that they've gone,
Yeah.
and I know I'm putting a bit of a humorous take on that, but but we can't do that. We don't do that for our pets, and it's not, probably would not be possible, quite frankly. It'd be pretty probably quite horrific, actually, to have to do something like that. But the thing is that potentially, if it's possible, it might be that we could take the pet to see the body. That would be maybe one way around it. And the thing is because of doing mediumship, I had that experience where basically there was a problem with the living pet that the vets couldn't solve. The owner thought it might be psychosomatic and was relating to the passing of their dad. And so I brought Dad in, and I asked Dad to reconnect with the doggy in that sense, and just said to the dog, you can ask Dad to draw close anytime you want. Same as I did with Bella, actually. I said to her, she can draw Edward close to her anytime she wants, and that helped. So I was able to bring that message through and reconnect them in that way, but also then bring a message through for the owner as well, who was also obviously missing her husband. So, that was incredible. And I think all of those experiences, that's what kind of culminated in me going, this is what I want to work with, because this is powerful, and this is, you're working with, as I say, living pets that are grieving their siblings, and you can bring them together. And if it's an owner that's passed, then you can bring them together in that way. And if it's, so it's a multitude of things, but the same thing really is reconnection, but just in an energetic sense rather than a physical sense. But I think sometimes, we need that.
Yeah.
I helped somebody the other night because a family member had passed, and I said, okay, it's all right me saying they're drawing close to me and I've got goosebumps and I can give you information, but I want them to understand that they can do it, and just by picturing that person or that pet and just saying, I'd love it if you would draw close to me, and just being, just allowing that to happen. And it might not happen straight away if they don't feel that we're ready for it. It may not happen straight away, but often we'll get goosebumps, or we'll feel like the brush on our cheek where our cat would have pawed us, or we'll feel the touch on our arm, or we might even see a visual of them putting their paw on us. So I think it's just so healing knowing that they haven't gone, like death is not final, the soul lives on, and I think that's really important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, Gyps, when she came through, all I got was these sentences in my head, with what I was supposed to do with her. Didn't get any pictures or anything. It was just do this, do this, do this, do this. Yep. Okay. That's what I'm going to do.
But again, you could take that for her, couldn't you? Like she was quite direct, and that was her personality coming through, and I think that's important, and the thing is, like, I found as well, is often, not often, I don't get that often now, but certainly I've had it before where somebody said I wanted a particular thing to come through, which would have said 100% that was them. And I said, and then they get troubled because it hasn't happened. And I've had to sort of explain, well, you might see that as relevant, but your pet may not see that as relevant. So even though you want that to come through, they don't want to tell you that because you already know that. They know you know it. It's like they don't often talk about their past. Sometimes they will tell me how they've passed and how it went, but they don't always. And if I ask them and they say no, I don't want to talk about that, then I respect that. At the end of the day, and we'll talk about other things, and they'll bring through happy memories and, as I say, like messages and things like that. But they know that I'm going to do this. They already know before I've even set up the, got the photo up for me to look at the end of the day. But it's just so lovely. It's been really beautiful to reconnect people. But as I say, for me, the healing part is also so powerful, because for you to be able to release things like anger and guilt, even if they're perceived, if that makes sense, we may not have had anything to feel guilty for, but we perceive that, and we all love beating ourselves up about it and getting angry at ourselves for it, and things
to the
like
vets earlier, if I'd done this, if I'd done that. Yep.
Exactly. All of those things we love to beat ourselves up about, and so again, it's about working with that, and it's about, self-forgiveness is often, part of this. I mean, one lady, bless her cottons, was, really felt like she hadn't done enough to help her pet, and the pet came through and said, but the vets couldn't even know what was wrong with me. So how could you possibly have been able to do that? And I thought, well, actually, that's very true, isn't it? Like, yeah, exactly. If the vets, bless them, with all their expertise and their knowledge, couldn't help me because it was my time to go, then yeah, and that's often things that they will say is, it was my time to go. And of course, now when I sort of think about the soul contracts, I was like, well, that makes sense because if it was your time to go, it's your time to go. And there'll be a reason why that's that specific time for you to go at that moment in time in that particular way, as Jane shared earlier. So yeah, it's incredible.
It is. And, let's move on a little bit here, because something that you said, that vets said is the number one thing is anxiety separation.
Yeah, yeah.
And that, how does that kind of like manifest or?
So, so the with separation anxiety, you will normally get, most people see it that basically they're going out and, their pet is reacting and reacting more so than responding, quite vocally, for instance, or they might be ripping everything up in the house and things like that. And certainly something that I've noticed over a period of time again, because I had codependency and I've been healing my codependency, so I've done a lot of work on that, and around trauma, is I started to clock that where there is separation anxiety in a pet, there is very often a codependent owner. And that's not a judgment. It's just, again, if you think about pets being mirrors, it's like they're saying, hey, here's something for you to heal. And codependency is quite a big topic, but so separation anxiety, just sort of taking it back to that side, can be for lots of different reasons, and it's really opened my eyes up to it. So, separation anxiety can be that you're their food provider, if you like. So, and that was what a lovely friend of mine, Becky, said to me is, sometimes it's that actually they're worried that when they're going to get their next food, for their next feed. So they're stressing because you're going out and they don't know when you're coming back, so it can be quite simple like that. But certainly the ones I think that I'm working with are more where it is showing like that fear of abandonment, and that can go way back. So, it can be things like traumas they've had with their own mum, their own pup mum, if you like. I want to say bitch because that's a clinical term, but it just sounds awful saying that.
Yeah.
So we could say pup mum. That sounds much better.
Yeah.
So it can go back to that, because when you have attachment trauma in humans, and if anyone's interested in that, if you look up Diane Paul Heller, Helleler, she's like a specialist in attachment trauma, and I've done attachment trauma courses, and it made me kind of go, oh my goodness, this is what's often playing out, is insecure attachment between between pup and pup mum. And then of course what happens is then that comes through into life. So for instance, if they were crying out for mum and mum didn't come, then and they give up, they've learned there's no point me saying anything, so I'm just going to give up. So then what can happen is actually that will come through into their life with the human owner, where if they need something, whatever, they won't cry out, it'll just happen, because they've learned, well, if I cry out, nobody comes, so I give up. And there'll be insecure attachment. So when the owner goes out, it's like triggering again that fear of abandonment, so that can kind of come up. I've learned a lot with the separation anxiety that sometimes it can go even as finite as if you're using just one particular door in your home, they get quite scared regarding the other doors because there's no happy association, and we're sort of whittling it down like, right, so they're okay in the car and they're okay here, and so they're okay with that door, but they're not okay with that door. When do you use that door? We don't use that door. Okay. When, do you go out of that door? I do. Okay, so the only association they have with that door is mum leaves. So suddenly we've got this negative association, so it's kind of then working with that, So it could be as simple or complicated or intricate. And that's the thing, it's something I'd never really thought about, of with a lot of separation anxiety. It's the advice out there is really around managing it. And I know that's really helpful to a lot of people, but certainly what I'm seeing in the ones that are being drawn to me, and that might just be because of law of attraction and my experience and background, is the ones where it's more kind of the insecure attachment, it's the fear of abandonment, element of it. So again, it's very interesting because often an owner can take that information as well, where things the pet's saying, I'm thinking, okay, actually I wonder if the owner can take this, and it turns out again, like, it is that mirror, that
Yeah.
if a pet fears abandonment, then actually there's an element of the owner, even if they're not conscious, that fears abandonment as well. So
Yeah, yeah, I can think of one story, or that I know, somebody who got a kitten, and they literally did not like leaving the kitten by itself, no matter what. It would sleep with them. If they went out, they wanted someone to babysit the kitten, and it was kind of like really intense. Wasn't helpful to the kitten at all because it learned to, I think, and it turned out that, yeah, she sort of like had abandonment issues herself.
exactly. So she didn't want to allow the kitten to feel abandoned. So it's like, okay, so I'll make sure that doesn't happen. But really, again, that's then sort of showing us that's what we need to heal in ourselves. And normally we do that through us. But again, it can be so beautiful. I mean, I worked with a lovely doggy, who has, slight separation anxiety, and actually some of it wasn't anxiety. Some of it was actually excitement. We realised, actually, not excitement that the owner was going out. I don't mean it like that, but it was perceived as anxiety, and it wasn't. It was actually to do with excitement, and so that needed to be, looked at. So again, sometimes it's us projecting
Yeah.
our things onto them. Oh, they're this, they're that, and actually, when we do that, sometimes we need to look at, okay, are we that? you know so, like, with separation anxiety, you can imagine there's a lot of people go, oh, they're so needy, and it's like, right, okay, that's a mirror. That's saying that you dislike that part of you that can be needy, even if it's like the smallest part in your life, or it doesn't come up all the time, or if it just comes up in relationships. But again, if we dislike that neediness in them, then we dislike it in ourselves, and there's like that judge within us that deems it as something bad. But actually, again, when we show self-compassion as to, well, why would that part be behaving in that way, it's normally to feel safe. So again, you can work with that. And I know one of the doggies I worked with, we actually, it was craziest thing, but she's such a good teacher for me. She's a bless her, and she knows it. And I actually did parts work, where I actually had, one part that had separation anxiety on one hand, and, another part on the other hand, I think, that was to do with nurturing. And we worked with that, and she'd got walls around her that she'd built up, and we took the walls down, and hers related to basically feeling quite unloved by her mum, but not her human mum, but her pet mum, her pup mum. But actually, mum had nothing to do with it. She'd been taken from mum very early, and never got to see her again. So there was that kind of lack of closure, lack of, like, insecure attachment basically going on there. And unfortunately, her mum had passed to spirit. But again, that was kind of the first point where I was like, okay, let's bring mum in from spirit and ask her to connect with her and let her feel it, And her human mum was like, yeah, she's here, I can feel her, and she is responding, she's relaxing, and she's like, oh, So again, it's, and that's what I love, is the integration of it all. I never thought that I'd be able to use, CBT with pets, or parts work, as I say, with pets, or but I am, and I'm using energy techniques with pets that I use with humans. And even though, like, they haven't got hands, we still find a way around it. So yeah, so it's and that's the thing, I suppose, because of my journey with codependency. It's meaning then that I'm able to, like, work with the pets that have separation anxiety, but the owners too.
Yeah.
Because, as I say, often the owner it has the codependency there as well, and there's reflections there. And if I may, I just want to quickly share one of the stories actually around
Mm.
separation anxiety, which was to do with a cat called Lily. And I'd gone to see Lily because she was suffering with hyperesthesia, which is where they're turning around and kind of biting their tail quite a lot. And the vets had said, this is psychosomatic, this isn't something medical. And I'd been to see her, and that was to do with separation anxiety. Her mum had changed routines, so was out of the house a bit more often, and she was struggling to cope with that. The cat was, Lily, because basically there wasn't much to do in the house, and the garden was just sort of very barren. And I remember walking in and kind of going, "Oh my lord," like and that, not judgment, but just you can feel it from their perspective that it was very barren. There was nothing there for her to be mentally stimulated. And bless her, she was incredible. She just said, "Right, I need more time to play. I'm frustrated. I'm bored. I need to know when mum's going out, when she's coming back." She gave us a list of things that she wanted in the garden. She actually sat by, mum was incredible. She got her a feline enrichment station, which Lily absolutely adored. So that really helped her. She got all the plants for the garden and the things that had been suggested, and Lily went and sat with her outside while she was planting them, which I'm not sure whether it was just like, nope, left a bit, right a bit, because she gave quite a big list. But again, that made her so much happier that suddenly her world had gone from being really boring to suddenly, igniting those natural behaviours in her, and that stalk and pounce that they like to do, and just needing to find things. And it taught me a lot that that was the first time I remember like researching, going, oh my god, they can get separation anxiety. They just show it in a slightly different way. And I mean, I there's stuff on there, but I made Puss her a feeder out of good old, it's like Blue Peter here, just toilet roll tubes in a box. Um, not that I'm out that much, but I just wanted to do that for her because she's indoors quite a bit, and I just wanted her to have that mental stimulation. And that's as simple as it was, just non-toxic glue, cardboard box, toilet roll tubes, and then I just put little bits of kibble and treats and things like that in there. And when she sort of feels like she's going to do it, she's a bit like, no, just put it in my dish. But when she does want to do it, it allows her some stimulation. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and Jane says, so interesting. I thought the other day that about our puppy with the human energy in our house.
Yeah, because they do respond to our energy very much so. So sometimes sometimes with the separation anxiety, it's not helped by our feelings around it. If we're kind of like, oh god, are they going to be okay? Oh, I don't want to leave them. Or they're picking up all of that energy, so suddenly they're feeling that what's about to happen is not going to be good. So of course then it starts that association off. So it's been really incredible to look at this, because it's allowed the owners that I've worked with to really understand their pets better on a deeper level, have more understanding for them and their needs, for instance, and be able to put more things in place, to actually help them in that sense, And then I work on, as I say, kind of working with like just communicating with the pet and getting their voice across, but also vice versa. So communicating with the pet of how this is affecting mum. But we can work with things like, because often when they've got separation anxiety, they often have generalized anxiety as well. So we can work things like, if they're sensitive to the bins being taken out, like on what level is that, what number out of 10 is it in terms of the noise and things. So there's lots of intricacies that you can work with, but I think it's just allowing owners to look at it from a different way. Whereas I think a lot of the advice, and I'm not saying anyone's wrong with the advice that they're giving out. Of course they're not. They've done a heck of a lot of training to get to that point. But I think the way myself and probably other people that work with it in this way is we're dealing with it from more of an energetic way of the body keeps the score. That actually, if they have trauma from their past that relates to things like abandonment and things, then actually what we want to do is work on actually releasing that trauma, the same as we do for ourselves. And so that in itself can be really powerful. It can allow them to definitely reduce those symptoms of separation anxiety. It allows the owners to feel calmer. And of course, then if we're working with the owners as well, if they've got the codependent tendency, so then again, it's like this whole bigger perspective, isn't it? Where it's like, well, now it's not just about the pet. They're helping each other, and they will understand each other better because they've been healing their own pasts. So yeah, it's all very complicated, but I love it in the sense of I just think that's wonderful that they're both going on that journey together. Whether that's pet bereavement or separation anxiety, they're kind of going on that journey together to help each other. And I have found that if you work with a pet, that normally it'll help the owner. If you're working with the owner, it'll help the pet in either of those situations. So yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant. The work you do. You can hear when you talk about it. You're just so passionate about it that it's absolutely amazing. So because you do all this stuff, and as my guest, you do come on and and share your passions and help other people. What I like to do is ask my guests whether they would like me to do a mini guided meditation or pull an angel oracle card for themselves and those watching. So, Victoria, what would you like me to do?
I'm going to say an oracle card for everyone watching. Thank you.
Right, it's not just for everyone watching, it's for you as well.
Okay.
So, put them around that way. So, what does Victoria? And of course, when I do the cards, I do for what you need to know for your highest good in this present time. Because although I work with the past, when I work with the past, it's to heal it so that it doesn't affect you in the current time. And when I work with the future, if you know your future, then you don't worry about it in your present time. So everything is what we need for our highest good at this moment in time. So what does Victoria and everyone who's watching this need to know for their highest good at this moment in time? Okay, that one wants to come out. Okay, so the card is fogged in, go slow, take time.
Aww.
So what this is saying is go slow at the moment. In fact, I think this came up the other week, which means the fact it's come up again means there's still a lot of fog around at the moment. And again, it's still saying don't try and push ahead too quickly.
Yeah.
Because you don't if you push ahead too quickly, you don't know what you're going to bump into. So take your time at the moment, go a little bit slower, take your time. You are going through the fog, the mist, but it's got to be done really slowly and not rushed. So yeah, so for you, Victoria, and everyone watching, don't rush things, just take your time, go slow. The fog is still there at the moment, but but you will get through it. You just need to take your time with it. And and again, you can also look at this on a level with pets as well, because I know there are some people that have lost pets and they go, I was looking for signs and they've not come through. They've not, immediately after they've passed. I kept saying, show me that you're still here, show me that you're still here. Um, and it's like if they'd actually taken the time just to go slow, they would have, in they would then have noticed that their pet was trying to come through, but in a
Yeah.
different way. So as you said earlier, what we perceive we want them to come through as, they have their own way of coming through, and we just don't notice it because we're ploughing straight ahead.
And it might just be that say they were called, I don't know, Shadow, let's say. It might be that they hear that name, like they're going out somewhere and somebody's having a conversation and they hear the word shadow, and sometimes it's that. And people think, oh no, that can't possibly have been a reference, but it is. Sometimes it's not always direct. It can be quite indirect, or you see a billboard, and it says shadow. I mean, I know when Phoebe passed, as awful as it is, it I knew it couldn't be anything else, and it's awful, but I suppose having worked in the vet referral industry, I'm used to it to a point. Is they gave me the smell of euthytal, which is what's called the blue juice that's obviously used to euthanize a pet. And they gave me the smell of that in my car twice. And in the end, I had to say, no, please, please don't. No, I want to know she's around me, but can you not give me that smell, because that reminds me of a really, really raw time, because she'd only passed like a couple of days and that kept happening, and I was just like, no, don't. That one, that's a boundary, that's a timeout.
Yeah.
But again, it can be, that was just their way of saying, well, you'll recognize that, which absolutely I did. But so yeah, it's not always direct, and I suppose the fog could also be the emotions as well, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
when we are going through bereavement, whether it's pet or otherwise, often, like I was saying, it's like that, blowing the four walls out of the house. It's like everything was in a swirling mess. I mean, I remember when Phoebe passed and some gentleman, bless his cottons, rang and left a message about wanting to give up smoking, which is sort of, one of the things I was looking to help with at the time, originally in the business. But and I just remember thinking, I can't cope with this right now. I can't. And again, that's just how grief gets you, because it was
Mm.
just like, you wanting to give up smoking right now is so insignificant to the pain and the swirling vat of emotions I'm going through. And of course, to him, it wasn't, absolutely. And that's why I had to take time out, because again, you could feel that anger coming up, and the last thing I wanted to do was to be angry at someone else, when actually it's not to do with them. You're angry because you've had to let go of this beautiful pet that you loved, even though it was the right thing. And that's one thing I will say to people, is if you're in that situation, you'll often know when it is the right time. You'll see something in them, you'll observe something, you'll feel something, you'll see the look in their eyes saying, I'm tired now, I'm done. A bit like Panda laying down in the loo. I knew on a body level, on an energy level, I knew,
Yeah.
because I remember bursting into tears, and I hadn't consciously clocked it, but I knew everything was saying to me, so I wasn't surprised when they did say, look, the kindest thing is to do this, and so, yeah, I would say anyone that's in that situation, just know that you are doing the best that you can, to do it at the right time for them. And the one thing I've always said is, no matter how much I hated having to do it, to me, it was always came down to her quality of life, and it would with
Yes.
any of them, that if their quality of life it diminishes to the point that they don't have one, or it's not right for them, then that's where I draw the line, no matter how devastating it is to me,
Yeah.
because my bond, if you like, is to their need, and if that's their need, I have to just put my, I'm not going to swear, I have to put my stuff aside, and let them go. And I think that's the hardest thing, isn't it? Is that
Very.
detachment at that point in time. But yeah, I hope people have found this useful, and to know that you aren't going crazy, you are seeing them. And if you've got that in a human loved one type way, where you're seeing them in peripheral vision or feeling them hug you, then again, no, it's exactly the same. They will be sending you signs. People's perfumes, is a really common one, isn't it?
Yes.
Or their favorite flower, or again, they'll send you other signs, and robins is quite a common one, isn't
Yeah.
it? And feathers and pennies from heaven, all of those kind of things, or you'll just think of them and think, why did I think that? And it'd be like, because they've drawn close and you're feeling them without even realizing it. So yeah.
Yeah, beautifully, beautifully said. So, everyone, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation and found it insightful, because I know I definitely have, and I've got lots of information and that from here. And you actually you've been reading a book recently, haven't you?
I have. Have we got time for me to just read an
Yeah,
excerpt from it?
yeah,
Let me, because I just think it's really powerful. You'll have, it's from it's right. I'll show you the book first. Start at the beginning. So it's called Soul's Gift by Robert Schwartz, and it was recommended to me by a lovely friend of mine, Tracy Fantz, who I've been working with. She's been helping me with my past lives. And one of the things it shares, let me just find it. I think it's here. Okay. So this is, as I say, it's to do with, he talks about pre-birth planning. So this is all about soul contracts. But one thing that one of these souls said, in helping to release grief, all I can say is that life is a celebration, and there is always time for more life. People should understand that life continues, whether they see it or sense it or not. There will always be existence, and there will always be the opportunity to inhabit physical body in the future, whether in human form or another form on some other world. We come to physical life to experience ourselves, to experience the challenges through which we evolve. We love that process and we all crave it from time to time. This returns us to physical life again and again. Know that though you may not see us, we are still very much alive. We often visit those we love, place our hands on their heart, and surround them with our forms so that they may feel our love, so they may grasp that life is eternal. Just because they can't see us does not mean we do not exist. Life never ends. It is all that is. It is the stuff of which we are made, whether we are in spirit form or physical body. Life is truly everywhere. And just as I am but a step away from my mother, so are we all literally just a few steps away from those we love. The speed of thought is a powerful connection, and thinking of the loved ones who are no longer with you brings us to your side immediately, whether you sense us there or not.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And absolutely perfect as well. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Okay.
That was absolutely beautiful. So, Victoria, if people want to connect with you, how do they do that?
So they can go to my website, which is www.amatrineholistics.co.uk. You can find me on LinkedIn under my surname and name there, and also on Facebook as well. But as I say, the company name is Amatrine Holistics, which I think you'll put on the feed anyway.
Yeah.
And all my contact numbers are on there. So yes, if anybody is wanting to get in touch, then please do.
Yeah, and I would definitely recommend Victoria if you do want to have a pet communication. So everyone, thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for Jane for being the brave person and putting comments and asking questions. And thank you to everyone else who has been watching this live. And those that are going to be watching this on the replay. And of course, if you have reached a crossroads in your life and you need some guidance in finding the meaning of your life and getting clear on your path, then I'd love to be that guide for you. So please feel free to reach out and connect with me, and we can arrange a free 20-30 minute video call to help you gain clarity on where you are going and how you can empower yourself to take charge of your destiny. And also, if you would actually like to connect and work with angels, to help heal yourself, pets, family, and friends, then I'm running an Angelic Reiki 1 and 2 workshop on the 12th and 13th of February. And there are a couple of spaces left if you are interested. And please feel free to join my weekly newsletter and receive a free future life progression recording where I take you into a future lifetime to get guidance and clarity that you can use in your current life, as well as a couple of other free gifts. So thank you everyone so much for watching, and thank you for Jane. That's been absolutely brilliant. And of course, I invite you to share this video, as I'm sure there are more women who feel lost and want to get clear on their destiny, just like you, and want to know more about pet bereavement and anxiety separation with pets. And of course, if you are watching this on YouTube, then please feel free to subscribe and hit the bell button to be notified when the show goes live or when I post new guided meditations, as each subscribe and like helps me and helps you. So I look forward to seeing you all joining me again, same time, same place next week. And again, thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Jane. And thank you to everyone who's watching.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. It's really been good having the questions and the comments.
Yeah. Take care. Bye.